Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I have a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 191 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2 for 1 studios. Guys, it's the best place to consume all the content here at 2 for 1 Studios. And again, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, the notification bell. That way, you're up to date on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1. And listeners, if you didn't know, let's be honest, you probably did not. We are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 Eastkill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. So they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special conspiracies throughout the year.
Kapow.
Bring my mic closer for this one. Kapow. Also, it needs to be closer in general.
Nice. Yes, it should.
Yeah. Daniel, it's 191. And I was thinking last night as I rewatched Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny for a third time. I was thinking, I am very excited to talk about this movie with Daniel. Like, this was, for me, when a movie comes out, when I know it's coming out, I'm like, oh, I'm super excited for what X movie. But there's also this extra layer of like, if it's a certain type of movie or it's a big enough movie, I'm like, I know I also get to talk about it on Podcast 2 for 1 with Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
But our time with this movie never happened because you had a experience in the theater that stopped the movie, right? And
fire alarm.
Fire alarm. So it just never happened for us. And I've been waiting patiently, and I didn't realize how much I want to talk about it till last night. And I was like, oh man, I'm actually excited to this podcast. Not that I'm not always excited, but I felt an extra tingle going into today's recording.
The 2 for 1 senses are tingling. Yeah.
It was. They were spider 2 for 1. And I want to get your general thoughts on it, and then we'll piggyback off that. But what's your general thoughts of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
My thoughts are, I enjoyed it, but I've got issues with it. I think generally it's too long. And it's a little tiring at the pace it is. I don't feel like there's enough breaks. And I think that Indiana Jones really does not have an internal arc, and the pivotal decision of his arc is made by someone else. And that all just kind of falls really flat on its face at the end with a really whiplash ending, to be honest. But at the same time, it wasn't a fun adventure movie. It was fun watching them, do all the time travel stuff. I liked Mads Mikkelsen is, a perfect Indiana Jones villain. Absolutely perfect. I thought Phoebe Waller-Bridges did great. John Rhys Davies is back. That's awesome. We were missing Short Round, but other than that, it's good. I think I probably prefer. Well, I don't know. Gosh, yeah, between this and Crystal Skull, that's a pretty, I don't know where I'd put it. I think, I guess maybe I'd give it maybe just an edge to Crystal Skull, maybe just because I think there is a little bit more Spielbergness about that is a little more, even just at a basic level, they don't use as much CGI that is distracting. And there's something of a bit more classic cinema I feel about Crystal Skull maybe versus this one, but. Okay, there's a big word vomit of an overview.
We were 100%. So, going into this, I thought, you know what? Daniel and I are probably going to diverge on this movie. But then I heard everything you just said until the last statement you just made. And I was like, we're lining up 100% on this movie. Except when just now you said that there was less CGI in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. It's like, you clearly... I don't know what you're talking about.
Maybe less distracting CGI. Maybe. I mean, there was.
It's called
bias.
It's called the Hedgehogs and Shia LaBeouf swinging on a vine in the jungle.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's like the movie. We did a whole podcast on it last year.
Yeah.
But CGI wise, even with the deepfake Ford, which we'll get to, there's no version where Kingdom of the Crystal Skull doesn't outpace that or outclass that.
Maybe so. Maybe there was more total CGI, like characters were all CGI in a lot in the Dial of Destiny. Like there was just a lot of sequences where Harrison Ford was a CGI character that I noticed. Which I get it. He's like 80 years old and you're doing action sequences, and we're not gonna like do things that would like break most people's like hips at that age. But
You need to go back and watch, I guess, get
maybe
Crystal
that's
Skull
it. Maybe
again.
that's it. Maybe that's it.
Yeah,
But
you got recency bias there. But
let's go
okay,
back to the more interesting things.
yeah. Well, it was interesting until we diverged completely at the end. No, so just to kind of touch upon some of your things, I really enjoyed it. It was my most anticipated, probably most anticipated movie of the year,
Mhm.
just because Indiana Jones. Our listeners should by now know how important this franchise is to both of us.
Mhm.
And we have James Mangold in the scene who gave us Logan, which I think we both adore, right?
Absolutely.
And he's also just a great filmmaker with like Ford versus Ferrari. I love the Wolverine. I
Walk
know
the
it's not
line.
everybody's favorite. Walk the Line, and the list goes on, right? And so when he was attached to it, I was like, man, there's no better filmmaker that I trust than to make Dial of Destiny. And I think ultimately for me, it just lines up with you exactly. Mads Mikkelsen's great villain. All the performances are pretty great.
Yeah.
I like the script for the most part. Um, I think it needs to be about 20 minutes shorter at least.
Yeah, like at least one whole action sequence we could just probably get
Yeah.
out of there completely. I don't know
Yeah.
which one right now in my head, but it's just like one too many set pieces, one too many like just and to me it was a pacing thing of just like, oh, we're here and now we're doing another chase, and now we're doing a different kind of chase, and now
Yeah.
we're.
It's weird for me because like part of me is like, I wish I had three more new Indiana Jones movies to watch tomorrow.
Sure.
But like on a filmmaking level and like feeling the pull of the movie, like what it's wanting to be, I felt this is a little too long. And also I felt it probably a little too long for the general audience for an Indiana
Yeah.
Jones movie.
Yeah, it
Because
was
again,
like
this
two and a
movie,
half ish.
it's like 2.5. And this,
Yeah.
and keep in mind, listeners and Daniel, that this is a box office bomb, right? The budget was
Yeah.
295 million before marketing, and it made almost $400 million.
Yeah.
Critically, it finally crept up to 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. So it took a little bit. It started low, like 50%, and climbed its way up to 70%. But it didn't matter. The movie, I think, reportedly has lost Disney over $100 million.
Wow.
So it's a box office bomb. It's not the way you want Jonesy to go out. But so some of these things I'm talking about are more decisions I would have made to increase the box office, to increase the
Mm,
popularity of the
sure.
franchise. And some of these other critiques are like what you say are story critiques. And I think a couple things. You're right. Mangold does not have. It's like it's you watch it, you're like, oh, this is. I'm watching it. I'm like, okay, what would I have done? And I'm like,
Yeah.
some of these decisions are pretty good. Like, it feels like
Yeah.
it's a decision that I might have made in Mangold's shoes if I was trying to emulate some of Spielberg's magic, in
Sure.
particular, like setting up shots from like walking from position A to position B. But I think his biggest weakness is primarily his staging of action
Mm,
and how that doesn't it lost some of the Spielberg magic, right? Or it doesn't feel as easy. See, I think of like the driving sequence, I think it's pretty well constructed.
sure.
But you think of like the opening sequence, particularly like with like just the opening with like he's strung up by his neck
Mm-hmm.
and the bomb going off. I'm like, this doesn't feel like Spielberg. And it shouldn't. It should feel like Mangold.
Yeah.
But Spielberg is Spielberg for a reason. Like
Sure.
you can feel that magic has gone a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think absolutely. I mean, and like I said, it had a sense of just unrelentingness, I think, of some of that. And I think maybe that's even part of it is maybe I did feel like I feel like Spielberg's action scenes are much more clear what's going on.
Mm.
And these felt a little more chaotic and confusing, and like even some of them were just dark. You know what I mean? And so it was difficult, like even and maybe this is the problem of not watching in the theater. It probably looked fine in the theater, but like in the underwater sequence when he's with the eels and he's got the flare and all that kind of stuff, like I was just like, I mean, I don't know. I can't actually tell what's going on at all on my screen right now, but I know Indy will live, you know what I mean? But it was just kind of this like, just kind of a bit of chaos in it. And I think it was, I don't think it was unintentional. In some ways, I think it maybe was trying to add to the freneticness of the scenes and stuff like that. But I think even that is a part of why they felt it was getting it was tiresome by the end of it. You know what I mean? It's just because it was these action scenes that I think were very chaotic. I wasn't always sure what was going on when.
See, I don't know. I think my problem might be a little different in the fact that, of course, there is like a simplicity, or at least Spielberg. It's not like Nolan, right? He makes his films feel smarter than they are. Spielberg makes things feel simpler than they are, and
Sure.
they're not simple. They just feel simple.
Sure.
And I think that's might be the problem here a little bit with Mangold. But I think for me, like, and there's moments I'm like, that's a really cool moment.
Yeah,
They're
absolutely.
very,
There were some
but
lines I chuckled at. I liked the
yeah,
moment where they're like sea snakes and they look like snakes and he's like, no, they don't.
yeah,
I love that
yeah,
line. I loved
sure,
the you should have stayed out of Poland. I loved that line.
yeah.
When they were arguing, you should have stayed in New York, Dr. Jones, and you should have stayed out of Poland. I was like, I loved that. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and
there
I guess
was
real quick,
moments that
I'm
were
talking
fun.
more about the action sequences here, where I feel like there wasn't things though that just like blew me away. That felt
No,
like oh, that is like a new like. There's things in like the other four movies like that stick in my brain, like oh, that sequence and that sequence.
sure, right,
I feel like
yes.
this one played a little safe, right?
Do you think part of that
And
too? Because some of those sequence in the old movies, those were all did. I mean, Harrison Ford did a lot of his stunts, right? If I remember, but like even just I'm thinking of the one in I think is it Raiders where he's like hanging onto a car with his whip and just kind of like scooting behind it and stuff like that. Like, um,
yeah, that may
there
be Last
there was
Crusade,
some
but yes.
practicalness of that. That was the part of what's fun of that is that even if it's not Harrison Ford, a real person is doing that. You know what I mean in front of you, and so like I don't know.
Well, I
There
mean, I
is
think it's just the content. It's not really the execute. It is the execution, but it's
it.
also the content. I mean, like think about Shia LaBeouf and Indy going through the library and then skidding sideways, then going underneath the desk.
Sure,
You know what I'm saying? Like
sure.
that. Or think about
Yeah,
Raiders, where he's like you said, he's on the tank of the conveyor belt, or he's being dragged by the whip.
yeah,
You know, and to me, the biggest sequence that sticks out is the driving sequence, but he's driving. And the coolest moment in that is when
yeah.
he jumps cars. Like he jumps and the other car like gets hit as he's
Sure.
jumping. That's a cool moment.
That's a cool
But
moment.
it's like
Yeah.
but I'm trying to even think what I mean, the opening sequence, of course, is pretty lauded for being like everyone's like, I wish we had 2 hours of that. I don't. If it
No.
look like I don't if it looks like that.
Right.
Which we need to get into, but
I mean, I'll say I like the airplane sequence. I mean that's a pretty large chunk and there's a lot of plot happening there too. But I did enjoy them flying into like Greece during like the siege
sure.
of Syracuse stuff. I mean,
We're like,
the plane getting shot by arrows was fun. It was kind of interesting how like the bad guy lost early. Basically the villain dies at the end of Act 3, not the end of Act 4, almost like for this movie, right? Like he ends, and then there's still kind of there's still plot left. There's still like a challenge left. They
I
still haven't
mean,
like
there's
kind of
not
won the day
much,
yet.
like six
Um,
minutes. I don't know. I
well,
wouldn't say
yeah,
I would say a
and
whole
we're
nother
gonna get to
act.
the problem with it. Maybe not a whole nother act, but it's like it's
Well, I
not
think
the
part of my
final thing
issue, part of my issue is my expectations. I wrote again a better movie.
in your head.
So
Sure, yeah.
yeah, and that's always the problem lately. So I think first of all, my third viewing, I want to talk about this final act. Let's talk about the beginning real quick.
Sure.
Just to get out of the way. So the beginning,
Excuse me.
I think it's super fun to be revisiting an older Indian or a younger Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
I think the thing that kind of clicked with me finally, of course, there's moments where the face looks pretty decent, but
Yes.
95% of the time it does not. It looks like
All of
there's
those
no
moments are probably in the trailer.
100%. When that trailer came out, I was like, this
The
is like the
hood,
best we've ever
when the
seen.
hood comes off. Yeah,
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 and
yeah, yeah.
then you see the movie and you're like, oh, they really showed us the best parts in the trailer. So a couple things. One, I've seen people do some stuff where they've like AI'd it or they've changed his voice to match his younger self, and you don't realize how far that goes into making him seem younger.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's his voice. Like you don't think about it because you're like, oh, it's just that's Harrison Ford now. But you're like,
Right.
wait, his voice has changed. So I've seen people fix it, which you're like, how can these people do this on their
Right.
laptops and Lucasfilm can't? So that's a big thing. But also, I think his head always looks bigger than his body. And it's
Yes.
because like for these older actors, one of the big things what happens when you get older is your shoulders kind of they get locked up. They get locked up. They become
Sure.
more square, and so you don't have the flexibility that you have. They really need to go in the future if they want to do this some more, and they need to pad out their body and their muscle
Sure.
structure to make it match. Because what they're doing is I don't know. It feels like when they're putting this on the face, they're like making the face slightly filled out, but the body's not filled out to fix it,
Yeah, I mean, to me,
to match with it.
it still has just a video game character feeling to it most of the time. You
Yeah,
know what I
yeah, that's
mean?
problem
And
number
like,
one, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and so it's just hard to get past that. And it's just the problem is it's just it is fairly obvious a lot of the time. So it's just it's distracting. It's pulling me out of trying to enjoy this, flashback sequence, to
yeah,
Indiana's young years.
it
But
is fun. I think it's
I still feel
super.
like, I mean, ultimately, I still just prefer they casted someone almost like
I
that,
agree.
or I mean, I know they've done that. I mean, we've seen young Indiana Jones in Last Crusade, right? But like, I still like the idea of like casting a younger Indiana Jones, young enough that we don't need him to look exactly like Harrison Ford.
I
I don't
thought
know,
the
like,
same thing last night. I thought, you know what, they could have cast the next Indy right here.
or yeah, and I'm just like, why was the plan? I mean, I know we go out to Shia LaBeouf, and like maybe that was the plan. Maybe if the Shia LaBeouf movie had done good enough, he would have inherited the title. Maybe that
That
was
was
like that was a
that
part of.
was the plan.
Okay, well, they fucked it up, but like they should have done
We'll
that
get to
better.
that
We
in a
should be
second.
in. We should be seeing Indiana with his son, like,
We'll get to that in a
right?
minute.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll get to that. That's coming. First, I just want to point out this big plot thing to me. So they're looking for something, Indy, and I love his companion guy, like her dad. He's fantastic. He could like the
oh yeah,
perfect companion, right? He's in Captain America. He's a great
oh
actor
yeah.
in
He's in
general.
tons of stuff.
He's great.
He's
So
in.
he's
Wasn't he in Chernobyl as well? You
yes,
haven't seen? Oh,
yes,
you have seen. Did you watch
yeah,
Chernobyl? You finally watched it?
yeah.
Okay,
Watched it last spring. Yeah,
it's fantastic.
it's amazing, perfect show. So I think it makes no sense that like Mads Mikkelsen's character is like we're looking for this thing and like oh there's something else more important on this train and it's like because it's like it's a fake what they get first at first in the movie is a fake and they're like wait I just saw the Antikythera a second ago that's way more important and it's
Mm,
like that makes no fucking sense like just have them look for the Antikythera
right, right.
it's like why make them looking for something fake and that makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and just I mean, in general, the plot, if we're getting to that part, is it's whimsical and fun. I really do. I really enjoy where we get to at the end, and I can't say that necessarily. Like I enjoy that sequence much better than any of the like third act sequences of Crystal Skull, personally.
Really.
Just in general, they were just more interesting to me. And for some reason, maybe I don't know why, but for some reason, going back in time to ancient Greece feels less hokey than this spaceship and the aliens.
Yeah, it
I
threw
don't
me
know
off
why.
so much in the theater, and I was like, oh, so this is where we're going. And to be fair, to their credit, every artifact in Indiana Jones has always humbled our villains every
Sure.
time.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
In Raiders, I think maybe the exception might be Temple of Doom. In Raiders, they blow up from the Pandora's box.
Is there a single artifact in Temple of Doom though?
There's the
Like a
three like
oh, that's right. That's right.
stones, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think like that. Yeah, that they just get stopped, right? I'm pretty sure. But in Last Crusade, there's the cup,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I think she goes for it just like India is, and she dies because of it.
Yeah. Well, some
Um,
guy melts, doesn't he? Or was that
he
well
melts. Yeah,
because he
he
drinks out of
melts.
like the bejeweled
Yes.
cup. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he
And it's
drinks,
always
melts.
Indiana who like is the one that sees through it, which again happens when he's on the plane and he's the one like, he didn't account for continental drift.
Yeah.
Indiana sees
Hey,
the problem with it exactly in the same way that he looks away when they open the ark, in the same way that he
yeah.
realizes, oh, it would be the humble cup of the
Yeah.
carpenters.
On my
So I
third
think
viewing,
I think that it feels in line with Indiana.
It does. On my third
Mhm.
viewing, I had accepted the fate of this movie in terms of like, okay, I can't change it. And so like
Sure.
this is what we're going to do this, which it's such a unique place to end the film in terms of what's the fantastical thing we're going to see, right?
Sure.
And I think I had this like theory that they were going to go back in time to the opening of the movie. And
Yeah, that will be well. In theory, they almost were. They were going back in time to what 1939. What was the opening of
yeah,
the movie set in? I don't
19
remember what year it
well,
was
I think
on the.
45. I think it's
Okay, so
45.
like 5 years before, but essentially the same time period. Everyone that's alive then is still alive before. I don't know.
Can I go ahead and tell you how I
But
thought
I
the movie was
liked
going
the
to
twist a
end?
little bit. I liked the twist.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it and accept it, and I think it fits in line with the rest of the saga. But
Yeah.
here's what I thought would happen.
Okay.
And you may be like, that's a stupid idea. I thought the Antithecera would essentially not time travel the body, it would time travel your essence, essentially.
So you like be your younger self.
You would be your younger self. And so I thought they would have another chance to
Uh,
redo the first act, essentially. And so we were going to end the movie with the Indiana Jones. Okay, this is me thinking this before I saw the bad CGI at
sure.
the opening of the
Yeah.
movie.
Sure.
I thought it was going to be great CGI, right? So I thought they were going to end the movie in World War II, where Indiana Jones stops Mads Mikkelsen from becoming the new Fuhrer or whatever, and essentially the whole saga of Indiana Jones is a loop where
Hmm.
he never dies. He's always going back to his younger self and basically always on an adventure. The adventure
Hmm.
always continues. Does it make
Interesting.
sense?
Yeah.
Whereas like that's what's the perfect ending for Indiana Jones is that the adventure always continues. And once you leave Last Crusade and they're going off into the sunset
Mm-hmm.
and you change that ending, which is the adventure always continues, you have to always get back to that.
Sure.
And so that was my idea. And I was like, and maybe I just like the idea of ending it with young Indiana Jones. The adventure
Indiana
always
Jones is
continues.
immortal in a
He's
way.
a,
Yeah.
he's immortal. He never dies. But maybe I'm wrong, and maybe people would have also hated that idea as well. I don't know. But I do like the ending we get with Mary and him. It's
But I
sweet.
hate how we got there. Okay, can we get to
I,
this
f-
part?
yeah, I'm gonna say it for you real quick, Daniel.
Go
One of the
ahead.
worst fucking decisions in any movie is not letting your main character make the choice that's going to cement their future.
Oh my God, yes. And let's not even pretend like the movie built to this moment for him. First of all, it's not like the most emotion we get into is on the boat when he's talking about how Muff
Which
dies,
he,
right?
which real quick, Harrison Ford killed it in this whole movie.
Yeah, he's great.
He
But
killed it.
that had nothing to do with the decision to stay in Greece or not.
I can
I mean,
understand, maybe not. I can understand where he feels like there's nobody in the present that cares for him or loves him, or he doesn't have anything anymore.
but he doesn't. Yeah, okay. But I guess like the thing
He's running away from his present. He's trying to live in the past, which is kind of like poetic a little bit
sure,
for a
a
historian.
historian. Yeah.
The problem is not really that for me. It's that she punches him and he wakes up and he should have made the choice himself and realized, no, I need to be in my own time and I need to deal with my own life myself.
Yes, and I don't even think it even felt to me kind of out of character for her. Like I don't
She
feel
makes
like
it.
I don't
They
feel
don't
like
really. They don't really earn
justified
her. Yeah.
her change of heart. Like she starts out as this like I'm only out for the money and I don't give a shit kind of person, and like you know what I mean. It's I don't have any sentimental value. No one looked out for me. Kind of like I fuck everyone. I'll do me. And I don't feel like they earned her becoming this like I don't know she's like oh it's about relationships now and like I don't know it just didn't work for me
No,
at all like
I
it
agree.
happening it was whiplash. I was just like what the fuck, you know what I mean? Like it just whiplashed me because I was like sure, like we started fading up to like him and in bed. I was like surely No, they didn't do it. They didn't even have like, I was expecting at least like one more sequence of them trying to get to the hole in time. You know what I mean? They even set it up. They even set it up earlier in a way that like makes you expect it. They're like, the hole's we don't have much time. We've got to get to the thing before it closes. And then the movie just makes that happen off screen. And that's just not normal.
I don't care about the jump cut. I just care about how we got to the jump cut. That's what I care about. The jump cut
in general, it just felt like, pacing wise, it was just like it was almost like we ran out of money. Let's get to the end. Had a feeling of it almost.
I've seen that frustration quite a bit. Again, it's funny. I was looking at some Reddit stuff last night, and most people were concerned about what you're talking about versus her punching him. And I don't care that she's in the conversation. Then is not even most people were talking about. Where most people it's like, I'm upset about the jump cut. And then I'm upset about her punching him because a woman punched out Indiana Jones. It's like, that she's a woman. No. I don't give a fuck who punches him. I just care that he doesn't get to make the decision. That's what I care about.
Yes. And so, therefore, like I don't know, the fact that he gets Marion back feels so unearned for him. It just feels like
he's forced.
He didn't even call her. He didn't. What's her name? Called her for him.
Yep.
Right. And so it's just like, he gets this perfect ending and he did nothing for it internally. Yep. He made no decisions or character arcs or anything. And it just like, yes, I love him ending with Miriam. That's sweet. It's how it always should have been, which the last movie did too. So it's not like we haven't done that before, but still.
And he had a live son then too. This is kind of like a depressing.
Yeah.
Also, what's the deal about like, I didn't care so much about this with Luke Skywalker, even though I probably should have fucking cared about this. But now I'm finally getting to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm coming to the dark side where I'm like, what is it with all these companies, Disney, having to like make our characters so sad at the end of their journeys? And I get it. That's how life probably is. Like, it's not probably. That's how life is. Let's just be honest.
Sure.
But I don't know if I need to see Indiana Jones lose his son. You know what I'm saying? Right. And I feel like that's the decision made because everyone hated the character in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
And not because it's what's most interesting for Indiana Jones.
Well, I mean, it does feel like kind of like the easiest, like it's like, well, we're not going to use him anyway. So we can either write him out like, oh, he's just vacationing and whoever the knows where, blah, 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 blah.
It's fine though.
But I feel like it was like but if we make him die, it makes it complex. And like I get wanting to add,
I get it.
Emotional stakes or like emotional, like you want to add emotional layers to the character. I get that, that's, and I think that's a fine inclination. It just feels like that wasn't the best way to go about it. And I think at the end of the day, again, it doesn't feel like, I mean, I hear what you're saying that like, he feels like he has no one left and therefore he wants to stay there. But to me, it wasn't a strong enough line. There wasn't a good enough line drawn from that to, that's why I want to stay. You know what I mean? And maybe they should have done more.
I agree.
Like
I agree.
At the end where he's like, maybe it was just kind of like, it really seemed like he was just like, this is the time I studied and I want to help Greece beat the Romans or something, which is like, also like, would Indiana really want to like mess with history? I don't like that. That almost feels a little interesting, but I don't feel like they were like, it didn't make it clear to me that it's like, oh yeah, he's choosing this because he's running from his trauma. I didn't really get that from him in that scene. And so it all just felt very weak at the end there.
It does. And there's a couple of things. Yeah. There's also great questions like, would Indiana Jones want to change history or he's all about preserving history, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just like surely he understands like the butterfly effect consequences it could have if like Greece never fell to Rome. Like what?
To be fair, in that moment, the butterfly effect in this universe is extinguished, right? It's a loop. It's never. It was always going to happen.
Sure.
And ironically, it's like a thing where it's like chicken or egg situation because I don't think he could have finished the Antioch era without the bad guys watch.
But that's the thing. I think that's the thing and I thought that was actually kind of clever, right? Is that because they set it up as if Archimedes had been to the future, but that had never happened. What had actually happened is Archimedes built the two pieces and then he died and he only ever built those two pieces. He never used it, but in the future they found it and combined it with the watch and then it became like usable. I think that was the idea, is that Archimedes almost like had the idea of it but couldn't finish it because he didn't have like the technology or the understanding of it at that time. And so it was finished in the future, then they come back, but that was like, he's like, I did it so they would come help us. I did this so it would go to the future and they would come to the past and then help us defeat the Romans. Like that was supposed to be.
I don't think it did help them, did it? I mean,
no, they left.
Did it help them?
They left. I mean, she knocked him out. No, but I mean, a few extra Romans died, but the battle seemed clearly won. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Is like, it's like, it's a loop in that, like, yes, in the past he makes these and they go to the future, then they come back, but there seems to be absolutely no point to the loop. It's just a loop, like, you know what I'm saying? It's not like a loop that influences the future. It doesn't influence the future at all. So it's just this like pointless time.
Loops don't influence futures, right? But
what I'm saying is,
loops just like submit futures.
If they didn't go to the past, if the loop didn't happen, nothing is different at all about history. No,
I agree. Yeah.
And so in that way, it's like, it's a pointless loop. It's not a loop that influences. It's not like this has to happen so later things happen. Well, not really. I mean, like the end of the loop is them going back in time and then just coming home. And so it's not like the end of the loop would be like, because to me, I like it's not like in like Back to the Future or something like that, where it's like, actually the loop is important because while that character was there, this happened that actually influenced the future, and like that was always supposed to happen.
But there's no loop. This is quantum theory stuff. This isn't Back to the Future. This is lost. This is lost.
Okay.
What's happened. It's what this is.
So this new? What are you saying?
This isn't like Marty McFly going back in time and changing the past, or being changing the past and there being a new future. The way this is constructed is that there's never a version where Archimedes never met Indiana Jones. That doesn't exist.
Right. But what I'm saying is, usually stories around that makes the loop important to like the future or something, right? Like that's how you would typically do that.
You're saying future, and what you mean is the event where the loop takes place is what you're saying.
Or what I'm saying is even like
that's what you mean.
After the loop. What occurs after the loop is closed? I mean, it's always stuck in time looping. But like,
what you're here, let me. I know what you're saying. What you're saying is it would be. It's more advantageous for the loop, or not advantageous, but it's like it's more important if when Indiana Jones and them come through that they destroyed the Roman Empire, they destroyed the boats, and they actually saved. Yeah, yes. I know what you're saying.
Here's how it would be like. Oh, there was this battle, and history has no idea why they won. We just know that they were outmatched and they won. I know what you mean. It's all, and then they go back in time. It turns out they were the reason, right? Like that's how you would typically use that plot device, because then it makes it like, oh yeah, well that's interesting because but this one, there's no importance to the loop.
Nope.
It adds nothing to history. It doesn't change anything. It's just like which is just baffling. You know what I mean? It's in a way of just like.
There's rumors of dragons, because like in that scene prior, they're doing the play, right? There's dragons coming down to. It's that, like and also on the tomb.
Dragons wouldn't have lived in ancient Greece and mythology. I mean, it's like
that's it. That's the only difference.
Maybe, or like his tomb had the fucking propellers on it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? Which is a weird thing to have like a dragon and they have or a bird and have propellers on the bird.
Yeah, it was funny.
I'm like, surely
someone got a better view of it than that.
Well, if someone saw if they saw the propeller,
you had the wreckage. You could have just kind of
that's true too.
What was there.
Yeah, if they had the propeller, if they see the propeller, surely they see what the propeller's attached to.
Yeah.
Propeller's the smallest thing on there, baby.
Yep.
That's fascinating. I mean, that's, also whenever he's like framed for murder, I'm like, but Indiana Jones doesn't have the gun. Like he's shot with like he don't have the gun.
And then that's never followed up on ever.
Never. Guess he was cleared.
I mean, I kept also wondering if they even know he came back to New York. I mean, they just slipped. I mean, was he? It also implies he was unconscious the whole ride home almost. And so, like, it's just
true. Weird, oh yeah, it does. The whole ride home, he sleeps. Also, Yeah, in this version where we don't have answers, like the world thinks that Indiana Jones is a murderer. Like he on the day of his retirement, he murdered two
and
people.
MIA, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah,
like no one knows.
yeah. Now, I don't believe
Yeah.
that. I think
No, they
this
resolve it
is
off screen, blah blah blah
they
blah blah.
resolved it off screen, blah blah blah. But those things kind of I think it's a plot point that shouldn't have been
It
introduced
shouldn't
as
have
the
ever been
problem.
that he was suspected of murder. They didn't need
100%.
that. He was on
Well,
this adventure anyway.
that's his that's like his reasoning for like I'm here to clear my name, and it's like, dude, you're Indiana Jones. You're here to fucking be on an adventure.
Yes,
That's all you
your
need.
shit got stolen. That's all
Yeah.
you need.
Yeah,
You
100%.
think it's a Nazi, you know, like that's
Yeah.
all we need. It just it felt weird when I remember when they brought that. I was just like, that's a weird way to make it more complicated and
It is.
unnecessary. We didn't need that motivation.
Super weird. You know, I told you this last year when we were writing our feature. I was like, it made me feel much better about like the opening sequence when he's like, here's the thing that we're going to see at the very end of the movie. And also the girl happens to be in my class who's looking for this thing we're talking about. Like, it's just like
Yeah,
the ultimate coincidence thing. And I'm like, well, I feel
yes.
much better about our film
Movie
now.
coincidences. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
holy
absolutely.
shit. And maybe the thing is, maybe we can't get away with it with ours because this is like its own genre. Like,
It's like a
cool.
kind of a weird world where
Yeah.
it's not really reality. It is like a mystical world where there's deities or some kind of powers at play, and then time travel and aliens and
Yeah,
these kinds of
100%.
things. So
When you throw in aliens there, you're like, oh yeah,
exactly. I mean, like, yes, like I mean, at the end of like it was like with the first three, it's like, oh, it's our world, but it's like as if God's real. Like that's the only kind of difference between our world and that one, right? As if that like the Old Testament was real.
And what's funny is most people
all
believe
those
that God is
prophecies
real.
are real. Exactly. It lined up with just kind of general
Yeah.
audience's opinions of the world at that time,
Right,
Especially
exactly.
in like the late mid late 80s. And so it's like it felt like our world because everyone else kind of also believed that, and then it just stopped being our world. And to some degree, I guess it makes sense. America's become less religious over time, and I get at some point you don't want to keep making a movie that's just like our world but God's real, because then it starts feeling, I don't know, a little propaganda-ish.
Yeah.
Weird.
I'm not 100% sure
Anyway,
I don't know if that was part of the thinking or not. Maybe it was just part of the cultural shift.
I think it was that. It
as
was
an
just
artist.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, no, I mean, the movie, again, all that being said, I enjoy it. Like the
I had
score's
fun
great.
watching it.
The performances are all great. And like, I like the banter for all the characters is great. Like they have, like you
I
said,
thought
the
they
pole
had
and stuff.
good chemistry. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
her.
All good.
I liked the whole dynamite thing. I thought that was a pretty fun little
Good sequence. Yeah.
little sequence. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I thought they had pretty good chemistry.
Yeah.
And I
I
like the
wish
little
that
kid, like the younger guy. I thought he was
he was
a fun
great.
character.
He was a
Yeah.
great new short round.
Okay,
He like,
did we? I was trying to figure out the guy that was helping them, the guy that owned the boat. Has he been in he was in the other movies too? Is
no,
he a
that's
callback character?
That's Antonio Banderas.
Was it? Oh my god, I
Yeah.
did not recognize him at all.
He's gotten older.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay, because like they had John Rhys Davies back, and then he's like, "Oh, my old friend." I was like, "Is this guy from the old movies?" And I just like
He's not,
can't
no.
figure out if he
It
was
was
in
Antonio
it. Yeah.
Banderas. Yeah, he wasn't in the old ones.
I kind of do wish John Rhys Davies had been along the whole time. I do love John Rhys Davies. So
Well, here's another thing that bothers me. It's in the trailer when he says, "I miss the desert, I miss the sea, I miss what kind of adventure we used to wake up to."
it
Like
sets it up coming so well.
well, that's just first of all, like that's the kind of shit that I go watch movies for is lines like
Yes,
that.
yeah, it's
I'm
great.
like, oh fuck, babe. Like the way he delivers it, I'm like, fuck, baby, just all day long. Give me
Yes,
that line
yes.
all day long. But then immediately afterwards, Indiana Jones walks into traffic. And I'm
Yeah.
like, God damn it, Disney.
Undercut
God damn
it, yeah.
everybody who like wants to undercut serious fucking cool shit.
Well, and it also is just like, but I'm not coming by. You know what I mean? Like it's like I like at that moment I was like, yeah, go with him. This will be fun. Like two old dudes, like
I know.
getting into hijinks and trying to. And like John Rhys Davies looks good for his age too.
He does, yeah. Yeah. Again, it's just all
I
with
can
Marvel,
definitely hear
right?
the accent coming through a few times. I feel like,
Sure.
but yeah,
There's a phrase for what I'm talking about. It's like a technique in like comedy or whatever, where they undercut something with comedy.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And I get it. It's supposed to be like, oh, well, you're going on this adventure, but you're not a spry young man
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. You could have had that moment and then they just look at each other and then you cut to on the plane. It'd have been like,
Yeah.
oh man, what a fucking feel good, like 100%
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. I
And
agree.
and they didn't do it as bad as like Marvel does,
No.
but still, it was just still like,
Yeah. Yep. I
why,
agree.
why make a perfect moment not perfect? Yeah, there's a lot to the movie, Daniel. I think killing Shia LaBeouf is a mistake. Again, they should have been off. Here's an interesting thing too. I'll ask you about before we get off here.
Hmm.
Last night I kept thinking, okay, that during pre-production and then
Hmm.
or rumors of the movie, they kept talking about the space race being a huge part of the movie in terms of like the setting, right? Like
Right.
the world is changing. It's 1969. We're fixing to go to the
Yeah.
moon. And I kept thinking, like, why build a set piece around this? Why is this so important? Why this time period now? Part of
Yeah.
its narrative where like he's been working for the US government for a while and so he can
I
have a
like
few
I
strings to
like that.
pull.
Well, I like the idea that because that did actually happen. You know, the U.S.
Right.
like used a bunch of Nazi scientists and just integrated into their own secret programs and all these kind of things and space race programs. So like, I like the idea that like a Nazi was hiding in the space race program and then now he's coming to do his thing. But it really it has nothing to do with space race. This movie does not have. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
what he was doing before, and now he's done. That it's the setup for that character and why he's here. But the
Yeah. It
movie
creates a
does
set
not revolve
piece.
around it at all.
It creates a set piece with like the parade and stuff, which is fun and cool and everything. And I think I was afraid before the
But the
movie came out
parade
that
was like anti-war, wasn't it?
was that what it was?
Yeah, it was an anti-war parade. Like there was a bunch of people saying that. I
Oh,
thought
there was. Yeah,
anti-Vietnam.
maybe it was just part of the parade.
I don't. I have no idea why the parade was there. I just assumed it's
Which I
parade
also
day,
don't
so
understand. I also don't. Yeah, I also don't. Well, my point is like, is it there also symbolically because it's like the world's moving on and Indiana Jones is worried about
uh,
history. You know, what I'm saying? Is that another layer to it, perhaps, so that he's
it
trying
didn't
to preserve?
seem that way to
Yeah.
me. But
No, I know.
yeah.
I don't think so either. I'm just saying, is that why? Like, what's the thinking behind that?
I
And
mean, it's a set piece. I did think it was a fun-ish set piece. Honestly, you know
yeah,
what I
I don't
mean. Like
understand why he like made them start chanting. That made the crowd more confusing for the bad guys who can see him 6 feet away.
I don't
Don't
know
understand
either.
that. And
Yeah.
then he shoots, and they all go down. Like there's things like that where I'm just like, I don't understand. But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's not what I would have done,
Yeah.
but it
And
also never is.
I think the most disappointing probably part about this is that this is. I mean, actually, I don't believe this. We're gonna get new Indiana Jones something someday. I mean, they're gonna continue it after Harrison's gone, probably in some fashion.
They'll announce 2 or 3 years after his death. And we're getting the game, right? This year
Recasting it, yeah,
with
yeah. We're getting the game, and so like, it's sad that this may be Harrison's last one. You know what I mean? Like,
it is.
I think it would be very unlikely they get him back for another one.
Well, there's no
Um,
the money aspect
at
alone.
least
There's no way.
at least not as a main character, as not as the
No.
main lead. Like I could see
Well,
him
he's
being
like
like a
78, right?
the mentor character that's there in Act One and in the end of the movie or something, but not like the guy carrying the movie.
It's not going to happen. This is one of the few times I'm like, we've reached the end of this journey here, like officially.
Yeah, probably so.
There's just
Which
no
is sad. Which is just sad. I mean, I think
we have the same birthday. I keep forgetting that. Me
You
and
and
Harrison
Harrison
were the
That's
same birthday.
awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's 81 years old.
Yeah, and so I mean, it does feel like he's really cashing in at the end right now. Like he's he's getting close to when he probably can't do much acting anymore, and so he's just kind of taking the big. I mean, Star Wars, now this, and all he was on an Apple TV show recently. So yeah, I mean, I think it's very unlikely we'll ever get Harrison Ford back. But,
into his credit, this is like his favorite franchise. I think this is the one that he's always talked about, and he pushes more so than like Spielberg or Lucas did. He was like, this is the one I like to do. I like to return to, not Han Solo, right? And so, and he's been on a record, and maybe part of it's publicity, but I don't think he would have signed. But he's been pretty adamant, and I believe him that this is like he likes the end of this character. And if anyone,
this
if
end,
any,
he likes this end for him.
he likes that. Yeah, as this being the last, this is like confirmed
Sure.
last time he's playing it. Blah blah
Yeah.
blah. Then he's like, this is an
A good
ending that
send-off.
a good send off for me, and I
Well,
like
I
this
mean,
ending.
I like where they leave his character, if that's what he's meaning. I like the circumstances he's left in, right? Like it's a
Yeah,
happy ending. I like who he's with, that kind of stuff. And so maybe I can agree with him there, like in that sense, at least. But
yeah. I mean, it feels like it does feel like a less stronger ending than the last movie,
And
but
honestly, I do think part of this is that it is, this kind of action movie is, we've seen this genre done a lot and done well. And I think, part of this, and I think, the people that I think really hate on it, I almost feel like listen, we've talked at length about the problems. I don't think it's a bad movie.
no,
At the end of the day. And I do think people that think that it's just like, I'm hearing some people that are big Indiana fans and are just like, they hate it. You know what I mean? And to me, it's like, I don't know if to me, and they're always, I feel like older people, like the generation like above us that like were like early teens and like teenagers when Indiana Jones was like coming out. And I do feel like there is this nostalgia for like that era of action films and that era of just adventure movies like Spielberg. And then we're doing things that we really hadn't seen happen, right? Like in action movies and stuff like that. They were kind of like redefining the genre in the 80s of what it meant to be an action adventure movie. And so I feel like there is somewhat of just like how could these movies ever measure up to that? I mean, like Indiana Jones, the original trilogy is pivotal to like the blockbuster, like the story of Hollywood and blockbusters. You know what I mean? Like it's a part of like the history of cinema in a really important way. And it would be difficult for these ever to reach those heights, right? And just in terms of being that influential or being that big of like, just wow, this is amazing. This just feels fresh and new and something like we haven't seen before, like the early movies did. And so I think there is it is. And in some ways, well, I don't know. I'm not going to get into Star Wars. We talk about Star Wars on so many other podcasts. I'm not even going to dip into that right now. But all that to say is, I think there is a thing of like nostalgia for those older films and I love them too, that is just like nothing will ever measure up to a degree. You know what I mean? And I think it's a losing battle to try to make Indiana Jones movies and try to think they will be as good, as impactful. Everyone would love Indiana Jones again as much as they did in the 80s. I think that's an impossible thing. So anyway, that's just
well, I was going to ask you. No, I don't know if it's impossible, but if you were making I think our equivalent is on the Game of Spheres Uncharted, right? It's just
sure.
Indiana Jones but modern day, and they did it. They did an Uncharted movie. What's the box office for that? Because it may be exactly the same, actually. Let me look at it. I think it's right at 400 million.
They probably spent less on it though.
Probably did. So it made like $8 million more than Dial of Destiny.
Budget though.
Half the budget.
Yeah. So obviously more of a success.
Almost a third of the budget.
Yeah.
And also Antonio Banderas is in it. Funny enough, he's the bad guy in it.
Oh, wow. That's funny.
So I think there's well, here's my question. First of all, Uncharted is not a great action adventure movie.
Sure.
But do you think Indiana Jones, if they remake it, and they will should it be set in the present or the past? Have him fight Nazis or have him fight Russians, or whatever it is today.
Yeah, I mean, I think there is merit to it being his grandson. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how they justify that. I don't know where.
They're not going to do it's his grandson. It's this. They're going to recast Indiana Jones.
But how do they do that as modern day? Like, are you saying restart the universe essentially? Like just
it's a reboot.
Okay.
Remake, reboot, whatever.
Yeah, I think there's worth doing that to freshen it up. I mean, I do think at that point you kind of have to make him almost like a I don't know. He's like archaeologist isn't the same kind of thing today as it was back in like the 30s and 40s when they were just discovering some of these things for the first time, like some of these like ancient ruins. So maybe
Sure.
I think they have to adjust his character a little bit, maybe. But I'm open to that. I mean, I think that gives us some new I guess like space to do something new with the character, right? Because I mean, like, what's the last like really good action adventure movie that you saw? Like in a character centered one, I guess.
My most recent favorite, like Indiana Jones movie, is Jungle Cruise. That was like
Okay.
2, 3 years
Okay,
ago.
I haven't seen that.
I think it's very well done. I think it's Gore Verbinski. I think.
It seemed more comedy than Indiana Jones to me, is though.
Well, well, I should say this. It's like the best swashbuckling adventure we've gotten
Okay.
in the last 3-5 years for sure.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
But Emily Blunt is like the scholar. That she's like the main.
And is that like a family friendly movie? That's more for
100%.
Yeah. So it's more of a.
It's Disney. It's Disney.
It's to me like I hear you're right. That is similar at least, but like it's still not to me a complete parallel to an Indiana Jones type movie. Like National Treasure to me is like that's a modern Indiana Jones in some ways to me. National Treasure. It's not
interesting.
It's not close. Like it doesn't reach the heights of Indiana Jones, but it is kind of like this modern day, you know, you've got this kind of like main character that is kind of spearheading everything. We're globe trotting. We're secret society.
Well, if you want to go like best ripoffs, The Mummy with Brendan Fraser is one of the best Indiana Jones movies.
But even though we're talking about movies that came out 20 years ago.
Well, so did National Treasure, baby.
That's what I'm saying. That's my point, is that we really haven't seen anything new. I mean, they tried to restart Mummy. That didn't work. But
the best answer is Pirates of the Caribbean. If you want to do like,
okay, but even then we're talking like 15 years since there was a good one, maybe more.
Well, yeah,
maybe
know
20.
what I'm saying though.
But I guess what I'm saying is like the genre we've done a lot with it. And I do think they have to do something to, I don't know. I mean, I know that like in some ways superhero movies are the action adventures most of the action adventures we get today, right? Like it is superhero action adventure. But I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, the genre for them to do more Indiana Jones, and maybe the trick is they just wait another 10, 15 years and like everyone forgets, and then it feels like retro when they bring it back, you know what I mean? And they just kind of, you know, still kind of tread the same paths, but do it slightly different, and everyone will like it because they haven't seen it in 20 years or 30 years. Maybe that's enough. I don't know. But for me to be really into it, I don't know. I need something fresh about it. I need to maybe the modern day is something that they could do that would do that. Can a modern day Indiana Jones carry a 3-movie trilogy? I don't know. But like, I don't know. Like, I just think, and maybe it's just like, let's tell good action adventures with like really, really good, like well-written characters that have great internal arcs and are just like good movies at a baseline level, but it's also an action adventure. Maybe that's just the key. Focus more on that. Yeah. Anyway, I'm rambling, but
I don't know. No, I don't know the solution. I mean, my favorite video game series of all time is Uncharted, probably because it is modern day Indiana Jones, and I love the character Nathan Drake, that version of Nathan Drake. And
what is Nathan Drake an archaeologist?
He's a thief.
Okay, so there are parts of Uncharted even that feel like National Treasure to me a little bit. Like I feel like Nathan Drake's a bit more cracking jokes, kind of like, you know, than Indiana Jones is to me. Indiana Jones takes himself very seriously in a way that I feel like the Uncharted games would feel a little more lighthearted. Maybe they're not. I haven't played them. I've only played a little bit of one.
God dang, boy. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if I feel about that. Indiana Jones, maybe in this last movie or two, he's more serious. Maybe this last one he's more serious, but I feel like he's sarcastic. He's not like chippy. He's not like cracking jokes. You're right. He is kind of dark in the first movie. He's kind of like, let's go to hell together, and like fixing to shoot a guy right there. He's kind of darker.
And he's just when he's funny, it's because he's like zinging people, but it's like not. They're not laughing too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he's like burning people bad with his jokes. It's not like
I do love
I'm
Indiana
the funny
Jones, dude.
guy, you know. It's like, no, you're an idiot, and I'm gonna do it in a funny way to tell you you're an idiot. You
I do
know?
love that character, dude.
No,
He's
yeah,
so
it's so
great.
like that kind of character is so fun where he's just like he's a badass. You know
Yeah,
what
he
I
really
mean?
is. He really is.
But and he's like in that way that like I like National Treasure, but I don't really consider Nicolas Cage a badass in that movie
No, I don't
at
either. I mean,
all.
hey, real quick, when he's on the train and he says like, "Come to Victor, come to spoiled," and he kicks that guy off the train, fucking badass, dude.
That's great. Yeah, I like
I
that.
was like, fuck yeah, that's what I'm here for. Shit like
Yeah.
that, you know. I
Yeah.
don't like it that she shot Mickelson at the end. Just because I
Yeah.
like my heroes to kill my villains, but I guess you gotta give her. I mean, she already punched Indy at the end. I'm not sure you should have gave her that
And
too.
also, just to go back to it, like even like I feel like they were trying to motivate her punching him and taking him back to the present in so many different ways. Like he was shot. Oh no, I had to do this because you're gonna die here because they don't have modern medicine. Oh, I also do this because like a time paradox or whatever. Oh, and I also have to do this because you're giving up on your family in the future. And so it's just like that. That to me is like maybe they did know how weak it was. Because they were trying to like motivate it in all these ways and none of them worked instead of having like a really strong core motivation that's
Yeah.
been tied to the progression of the character through the movie. Anyway.
Here's an interesting parallel kind of thing. One, this is literally the last thing I'll say, is that he loses a son and she loses a father. So they're kind of filling in those roles for each other, right? He's gaining a child, she's gaining a parental
Sure.
figure.
Sure.
And also he didn't like, I'm never, maybe it's stronger back then. I'm not sure how much like being a godfather or godmother, how much responsibility you actually have over a
Yeah.
child.
Yeah.
Maybe it meant more back then, I'm sure it did. But
Yeah. It was a
it's
little
like
weak. It was
it's a
weak.
little weak. Like you're my goddaughter, and like I wasn't there when your father died, and I don't know. That feels again, that's like something that doesn't translate to modern day, so it's hard for modern day audiences to
Yeah.
understand that, like or to sympathize with that.
And I mean, it was years ago, right? I mean, her father died like a decade before the movie started, right?
I
Is
think
that
so.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's not like it was that recent.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's weak. I mean, I see that they do it because it kind of motivates the conflict between them of like, why you're like this, don't you're a thief and
Yeah.
all these kind of things, and he's like shaming her, and she's like, well, you weren't there to raise me, kind of stuff, and it kind of motivates.
Yeah.
It kind of, I guess it adds some juice to that conflict, but it doesn't feel like an earned conflict. Like
I like it when he cuts at her. He's constantly like every now and then saying something that just kind of like it's very real, and you can see like she's disappointed. She's disappointing him,
Sure.
and so I think her shits the end. It feels like it was always going to happen for one because it's like an Indiana
It
Jones
feels
movie.
inevitable just because of what character, like her character and what role she plays, not because it was like
100%.
written well to
Right.
get us there. Yes.
I think it got us like 70% way there, maybe 60%. It just needed yeah. Daniel, how can listeners write into us, specifically Joe Williams, on this particular episode? Because I want to know his
Yeah.
thoughts. I'm sure he loved it. Joe loves everything. Joe, I'm calling you out. She should not have punched him at the end of the movie. Change my mind.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know how anyone can defend that moment. I think there's some things we talked about today that I can see an argument for why you might have liked it, but that to me is just like it's like a cinema sin in just writing and in like movies. Like to me, it's like I don't know if maybe there's some movie that's done it in a way that feels like they're like make as a point, that's a part of why it's part of the theme or something, but I can't think of a reason why you would ever choose to do that. It's just,
hey, he'll defend it. He just won't change my mind about it.
Well, if you also have something to defend about this movie, maybe you think that the punch was okay. Write into bit.ly/241mail and let us know your thoughts. We had a lot of thoughts about this. I it's nice again to have a movie where there's just some fun discussion points.
Yeah.
We were pretty much on the same side of the tracks the whole time, which is interesting. I honestly thought you would be higher on it. Like
Really?
I thought I would be more critical than you. coming into this.
Yeah.
But anyway, let us know what you think at bit.ly/2for1mail.
It's funny because I thought you'd be more high on it too. And again, I've seen it 3 times. You know?
Yeah, but I mean, you've seen a lot of.
I know.
Times, so. I just like to remind the audience that measurement has very little value.
Yeah.
How many
There's
times?
there's a small argument to be made about like a theme could be in a movie of like sometimes your family or friends have to save you from yourself.
Oh yeah, or the theme of losing control of your life. Like that's the theme, is like the character is having to deal with not having control, but then that becomes like, usually even then though, that becomes the catalyst for that character to then make a different decision in some way, or like an internal decision of like, I'm just going to accept this, or like whatever that is, you know what I mean? So like, even when I just feel like you always, in a narrative movie, and we're not talking like, in a typical Hollywood film, the main character, I feel like almost always has a internal or external decision that they make, and that did not exist here in any way. And
He didn't make an
strange.
I don't think he accomplished an external. Oh, he stopped the Nazis.
He stopped the Nazis,
sure.
but at the end of the day, he didn't even need to. If he had just let them go, they would have just crashed in Greece.
Which is just like Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Happened.
Same thing, right?
Yeah,
if he wasn't there. Yeah, no, I mean, that's the truth. But, same thing, dude.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true.
The fucking Nazis wouldn't have found the cup without Indiana Jones in the 3rd movie. That's always like a theme too, which I'm not a huge fan of. Hey, but
I guess in that movie they might have actually found it with trial and error. You know what I mean, right? Like it's in this film, it's like the stakes weren't ever actually there.
Well, I mean,
like even in the first movie, like they might have eventually found it, right? I mean, like,
well, the first movie they always would have opened up the thing and they all would have died. One,
sure. But more Nazis may have been there and like covered it up and then taken. Like, I mean, like,
but done what with it? Opening up kills everybody.
I don't send it to someone and let them open it up. Like, send it to America, send it to the president, be like,
send it to the White House. Sure,
it's basically their Trojan horse.
Sure, maybe, yeah, I guess. But then, and movie 3, right? You get the cup. First of all, you have to kill people to get the cup. How many bodies you want to sacrifice there, which is fine for Nazis.
The Nazis don't care. Yeah.
But then once you get out of the threshold of the ring, the cup doesn't work anymore. Once you leave, the cup stops working.
So I guess you just have to keep coming back to drink out of it to get more eternal life.
You can't leave. The whole place is going to come down, remember?
Yeah.
You're stuck there. Immortal life means you're stuck in this little cave.
That's true.
Yeah. And so Crystal Skull, you put the skull back, which she did, and then you get zapped to a different universe.
Right. Know? I guess. What about Temple of Doom though?
Temple of Doom.
That's the one. That's the exception, because like the win 2 is like freeing all the kids. Like that's a part of like why they are victorious, is they like free all these kids. Slaves.
I don't know what happens if they do get the power. I don't know what that means.
I mean, more people die. At least there's just continual human sacrifice if they don't get involved. Like human sacrifice just keeps happening.
I don't know what they gain from that though. I don't remember what they gain. The bad guys gain from that
either. They probably have a moment where they do it for a second. I can't remember what. I'm sure it's
like
either general powers, but at least there it's like, if he never got involved, that just at the very least it would have just kept continually being like a horrific place with child slaves and human sacrifice. So there's at least an argument like his involvement is like why there's not that anymore. Right.
Well, also if Indiana Jones had been involved, Antonio Banderas would have been dead, and the Nazis still would have died in Dial of Destiny.
The Nazis would.
They still do they wouldn't account for continental drift.
Right, died. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, if he had just let them have it and be like, oh fuck it, whatever, like no real consequences would have been had. Like, yeah.
Yeah. If I make
the moral of Indiana Jones, the whole franchise is don't get involved.
Don't get involved. It really is.
It would have happened anyway. You're not going to change anything. Stay home. That's the theme of these movies.
You're right. It's true. It's very true.
The secret theme.
Wow.
Man.
No one's pointed that out, I think, about Dial of Destiny. I haven't seen anyone put that out that they would have died anyway.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
that's fascinating.
I mean, I'm trying to think like, yeah. I mean, they needed to steal that piece from him, but actually, she did that first. So like, they just needed to steal it from her. But other than that, he didn't. He wasn't needed,
Nope.
and he didn't go on a meaningful internal journey either. So it's just it makes the movie even feel like a little less like, oh, this was just a wasted attempt.
Yeah, I didn't think this was going to happen to me at the end of this podcast.
We make
but
it worse.
yeah, it kind of did a little bit, but also
It's
it is what it
fine.
is.
I mean, the movie, it doesn't, I mean, what the movie does well, it doesn't take away from that. It just
Sure.
makes it even more pointless in some
Yeah.
ways that you just don't want.
Listeners / Disney, if we ever get to make an Indiana Jones reboot, there will be an internal arc. He will make the decisions for himself at the end, and it will matter whether Indiana Jones was there to
And
begin
if
with
he
or not.
hadn't been involved, everything would have gone to shit for sure.
Exactly. 100%. The Nazis will win if Indiana Jones is not there to take care of shit.
Right.
Thank you all for listening. My name is Donovan Thompson,
I am Daniel Wingfield.
and we have spoken.